Nice way to end the season with a big whimper. BC gets smoked at home by the Miami Hurricanes. Is this the end for Jeff Hafley? We'll talk all about it on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. So we had no expectations going into this game. Both Mitch and I made our picks for Wednesday's episode, and both of us had BC getting smacked, and it basically fell into line with what happened today on the field. And to join us to talk about that bad matchup is Mitchell Wolfe of Eagle Insider. Mitch, how's it going?
Another win for the no talent media mailing it in, as some member on our board called me. So, yeah, this is about what we expected. BC couldn't really. They got out to a fast start, good first drive, but defense just got repeatedly walked up and down the field. Getting 2 turnovers second half. By then, it was just too late for them to do anything. And yeah, it was just clear that Miami was the better team in pretty much every facet of this game.
So you mentioned, let's talk about the defense. Let's talk about Tyler Van Dyke. You went into this game saying this is a guy that could make a few mistakes. He didn't. And other than the fumble, the botched handoff. But BC was unable to get him off of his mark at all during this game, even though he was throwing some pretty ugly passes at different times. What were your thoughts about how BC attacked him and what happened there?
Yeah, if I thought this game could actually have been a lot worse for BC if Van Dyke had missed some of those throws that he was missing, or made some of those throws that he was missing early in the game, because he had a few where guys dropped it or it was not placed well, and it kind of they got over it, but it could have been a lot more points a lot more quickly. Yeah, the problem is Miami is a very good offensive line, and we've seen that BC's defensive line has struggled to get pressure on even bad offensive lines. They were great against Virginia, and that was the best pass rushing game they've had by a mile. And that's because Virginia has one of the worst offensive lines in the FBS, and Miami's is one of the best. So it made sense they didn't get a ton of pressure. Later in the game, they found they got a little bit, but they had the same issue they've had all year. It's not being able to convert those pressures into sacks. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is just a matter of talent. For the whole year, BC has struggled to find that other pass rusher besides Donovan Asaraku, and Cam Horsley to some extent he's been more of a run defender, but Neto Ekpala had a few pressures here and there, but again just can't convert those into sacks. So Van Dyke had a lot of time, and I did think going into this game that I didn't really want BC to blitz a lot because that would leave guys wide open, and at the end of the day they were still wide open even if BC didn't bring pressure. And that's just a matter of Miami's receivers being infinitely better than the defensive backs BC was trotting out there today, because you have Xavier Restrepo, the slot receiver, number 7, is one of the best receivers in the country, especially slot only receivers. And he had those, I think he had 2 4th down conversions, maybe 3, where he just cooked CJ Clinkscales. I think he had over 100 yards, 116 yards on I think 7 or 8 receptions. So he was consistently getting open. Guys were missing tackles again, not as bad as Pitt maybe last week, but still some bad missed tackles, and guys just getting burned. And again, if Van Dyke places some of those throws better, if guys catch the ball, Colby Young had that incredible catch down the sideline on, I think that was like 4th and 8. So, or it was 3rd down, led to a 4th and 1. So, sometimes they just make a great play, but other times, BC was just getting cooked because didn't have the talent. The 4th downs were particularly frustrating because you have to think that they're going to go to Restrepo in those situations because he is Van Dyke's favorite target. He's their most reliable receiver. So to not more aggressively cover Restrepo, and I know that's going to leave open other receivers, but to not really focus on him as the primary threat in those situations is pretty frustrating.
Where was Jalen Cheek in this game?
I'm not sure. We don't have the snap counts yet. I did hear some rumblings about him not playing in this game because he was announced with the starters, but I'm not sure that he actually played. I'm not seeing him in any of the defensive stats, so maybe he didn't end up playing. So that could have been another kind of injury that got hidden from us, or something else. I don't know.
So I've been thinking of an analogy for Neto Ekpala, and if you listen to this podcast for years, I've been a big fan of him, waiting for him to break out. But watching him rush the passer, it reminds me of someone that's like on fire, but has no idea where they're going to get relief. Like he just like bombs into the backfield, but is never anywhere near where the play is going to be, and never gets anywhere near the quarterback. And I just feel like he has the talent to get back there, but never does anything productive. I don't know. That's just when I was thinking of what he does, like it's not like he gets eaten up at the line of scrimmage. He gets back, he gets past that initial block. It's just he's always like flying 5 yards outside of the quarterback or never near the quarterback. And that was just, I don't know.
Or even if he is in the right, like he is in the right lane, he's pursuing, he just can never get the quarterback down or get close enough to him to make the sack. And
he's always flying off of them.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and rewatch him more closely. But yeah, it's a weird thing that is frustrating given that it happens seemingly every game multiple times. But I'm not sure, I can't think of, one or two primary factors as to why that's happening. So that's maybe something I can research in the offseason.
But I think it goes back to a theme that we brought up last week, which is this team defensively has no explosive plays, like no explosive players. Elijah Jones was probably the only one they had, and he's gone. And you have no one making sacks. You have no one, no ability to make turnovers. You're holding on by the skin of your teeth to hope that you can make 3, negative to neutral plays to get them off the field. And when you're not that good, it never happens. So I think that was kind of like it just happens. It happens again and again. When you play a team with some good playmakers like Miami, just got exacerbated.
Yeah, and you have guys like Cam Horsley and Dominic Zaraku who are really like playing their hearts out, trying to make plays. And at the end of the day, it's just they just don't have they can't protect everything. They can't fill every hole. And even sometimes, you see guys trying to make plays, like the play where Davion Crouch got flagged for tackling Tyler Van Dyke inbounds, and he got flagged for it, and he actually forced a fumble. Granted, it was fumble out of bounds, so it didn't matter. But you have guys trying to make plays like that, and then they get flagged for it. And it's, that's really frustrating too. And again, we had a lot of the same issues we've seen this whole season, guys like John Pupil and Cam Arnold just not being in the right hole whatsoever. John Pupil, of course, led the team in solo tackles, but he also, I'm sure, led the team in missed tackles because he's just flying around and diving people's ankles and just is not, this is a really tough game for him because this is like probably the best athletes he's going to play all season besides maybe only Florida State and Louisville. And he was absolutely exposed in space multiple times.
Yep. And so the defense, we've talked about that. We're going to talk about the offense in just a minute. And then we have some final thoughts about where things go from here. We'll get to that in our final segment. But passion, drive, and patience at what brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into power, speed, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This is AJ Black, Locked On BC. I want to tell you guys about something. I'm the publisher over at Eagle Insider. Mitch is my staff writer. We have a staff of 4 now, up from 1 before I took over. We're building over here to give you the top-notch BC sports coverage that you want. We got hockey coverage. We got football coverage. We got basketball coverage. We got women's basketball coverage. We're going to have baseball coverage hopefully soon. You can sign up for the full year right now for a Black Friday sale at 75% off. That's like $22 for the entire year. You'll get everything from recruiting news to scoops. If Jeff Hafley loses his job, we'll have all the details up on that. You need to sign up today. Do not miss up on this deal. Go up to Eagle Insider right now. Sign up. We'll have transfer portal news, recruiting news. Get into it now. You do not want to miss that. It's $2.30 a month or something like that. Get in today. All right. Locked On BC, AJ Black. We're talking about the offense now. And let's talk a little bit about Thomas Castellanos, who the first drive at least looked like the Thomas Castellanos we saw against Georgia Tech. And I think he had a few other drives where he looked okay. Mitch, what was kind of your takeaway from how TC played in this game?
I think it's interesting given that we kind of were leaning towards something being wrong with him injury wise over the last few weeks. And that's why I was hoping they would lean on Kai Robichaux going into this game. And then it turns out Kai Robichaux has an illness. He's sick or something. So that's why he didn't get as much run in this game.
Like something happens with that.
Yeah, exactly. And then Castellanos has a great day running the ball, probably the best he's looked, like you said, since Georgia Tech. And hit some nice throws. It had some of the same, throwing mistakes we've seen throughout the season. So it's tough because I did think Miami had a pretty good defense. They do have a good run defense. So that, I think kind of forced BC away from running the ball, which I wish they hadn't done. But because they got down so much so quickly, and especially in the second half, they just had to start throwing because you have to get something going. If you do run the ball at that stage, you are just going to run the clock out and give yourself no chance to win. So, I think this was probably the best we've seen Castellanos throw for consistently throughout a game, probably since the Georgia Tech or maybe the UConn game. I didn't think he made too many terrible decisions or terrible throws. And even the ones towards the end that turned an interception, maybe the last one that turned an interception, I'm not going to really hold that against him because you're trying to make a play to, get some points at the end of the game. So if you throw an interception, it's not that big a deal to me. And the other interception was a tipped ball, which that's going to come with the territory when you have a 5'10" quarterback. But obviously there were still some bad decisions, some bad throws, but there wasn't any really killer ones. And once again, I think his receivers let him down with some poor catching. Jeremiah Franklin had one really good catch and he should have had another one. But I think he had 5 targets and only caught one of them. Dino Tomlin had that one catch where he was on the ground and I thought he caught it, but the refs ruled it incomplete. He had another one where it was a screen and he kind of bobbled it and that allowed the defense to recover in time to tackle him for no gain. So it's kind of tough to evaluate from that standpoint. I'm just looking at the targets now. Lewis Bond had a really good game, I thought. Jaden Skeet had that really nice catch down the sideline, good throw from Castellanos. But yeah, kind of just more of the same on that front, honestly. And I saw people getting frustrated about the play calling at the end of the game. And again, I think at that point in the game, you do have to do drop back passing just because you need to get the offense. You need to hit big plays through the air. If you run the ball, you're not really going to move it all, especially with how Miami was playing against the run. Castellanos had a lot of big runs, but I think most of those were scrambles, a few design rushes here and there. Like his first touchdown run was a design play that went really well, but Kai Robichaux had 4 carries for 8 yards and Alex Ruben 3 carries for 5 yards. So you're just not really getting anywhere. So, if you throw the ball, bad things are probably going to happen, but a good thing might happen and that can, maybe lead to some good stuff. Whereas running the ball was just not really getting them anywhere. So, I think it was kind of more of the same from the offense. I think you saw some more positive flashes from Castellanos, especially as a thrower, I guess as both, but the throwing flashes are what you're more concerned about because you kind of assume that if he is healthy, he's going to run the ball well. So, more of the same from the offense, I would say. They needed probably to get a better performance from the defense to have a chance in this game. And granted, when they got the ball back after Miami's touchdown drive, they didn't really do anything for the rest of the half. So that's partially on them. So, yeah, just kind of what I expected out of this game.
Yeah, I mean, there's really, I think a lot of BC fans are probably already checked out from the loss and they were already going on. And then, I watched and thought, the offensive line was fine. I thought I didn't think they had any
playing good. I mean, that's going to be an up and down matchup. Miami is a very good defensive line, so that's going to be a battle. You're probably not going to win every time. So,
right.
Yeah.
But looking at everything, the one big question I texted Mitch about this was, where the heck was Joseph Griffin?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he played at all aside from the 2-point play at the end. Unfortunately, the stat broadcast, I can't seem to find if it has snap counts, which is frustrating. And
it usually doesn't.
Yeah, so we won't know that for a little while, but that's really the only play I remember him seeing. And even if he did play more, he wasn't targeted in this game outside of that play. So,
yep. And I look at, the play of that touchdown pass, or it wasn't actually a touchdown, to Skeet, and I was like, why didn't they reviewing that? It looked like it should have been reviewable to see if he got in.
Oh well, I mean, I don't want to turn this into another. Okay, we talk about this every time, but the refs did not truly influence the outcome of this game, the final, who would have won the game. But man, BC did not get one call in this game ever. We had 2 missed face masks on Thomas Castellanos. The Dino Tomlin catch should have been reviewed. The 2 penalties for unnecessary roughness were extremely soft. I think there was one play where Don Resurrection he drew a holding flag, which okay, fine, but man, especially it's kind of surprising given that it was a nice weather day in Boston. I'm sure those refs were scared about, oh man, I have to go to Boston on Black Friday. I'm sure it's gonna be terrible. It looked like a beautiful day, so maybe they think they want to get out of there, but man, just couldn't get a single break from the officials in this game. And again, I don't think it affected the final outcome of the game. BC did that enough for themselves, but just another game where it's just like, man, BC just getting consistently beaten by the refs too.
Yep. Yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought there was a couple plays that and I don't know how they activate replays and things like that, but it just seemed like that should have been something that they did. Now, in our final segment, Mitch and I are going to go over where we go from here. Talk about Jeff Hafley, talk about Bulls. We'll get into all of that in our final segment. You're not going to want to miss our discussion about the future of Boston College football. We'll get into that in just a moment. Now, I love going to sports, theater, and music, and I don't want to have to wait to buy tickets to the next big event. You shouldn't either. Gametime is the fastest and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best ticket prices, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Are you in New York? You want to get tickets to the Rockettes? You can find it on Gametime. You want to get tickets to the bowl game? You can find it on Gametime. With last-minute tickets, it's easy to find, and you'll get the best deals. They have deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even after an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute tickets, and you'll find your seats. The best part about Gametime is there's no surprise about where you're sitting. It'll show you a picture, so you know what you're getting when you hit that button. Best thing about Gametime I love is there's no hidden fees. The price that you see on your ticket is the price that you pay when you check out. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. This is Locked On BC, AJ Black. I'm here with Mitch Wolfe of Eagle Insider. You follow him at Mitchell T. Wolfe. And we are talking about some of the last thoughts of this game. And I'm reading some comments the media is putting up about this game. I had a moment where I could have gone to this game and I was like, yeah, do I really want to drive? I live kind of far away. This much to a game I know they're going to get blown out. I think I made the right choice. But certain things that I'm hearing about. Let's talk about the future of this team. There's a bowl game. I know that there's going to be some BC fans out there. They're saying BC shouldn't go to a bowl, which, as I always say, is a stupid thought, because if you like the future of this program, telling your players that you're going to decline bowls is the dumbest thing that you can do. But Jeff Hafley said during his post-game press conference that he doesn't anticipate very many opt-outs for BC bowl games. I'll get Mitch's thoughts in a second, but I'm going to tell you this. He may not anticipate very many, but the few that he gets probably will be impactful. I'm thinking guys like Christian Mahogany, Donovan Azaraku. I think there'll be a few, Kyle Hergel. I think there's going to be a few. I would have said Elijah Jones, but he ain't playing. Mitch, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I fully anticipate Mahogany to opt out of the bowl game. Older prospect now, playing. And my 2 predictions, and I can't. I think these 2 bowls are basically equal. Him playing in the Gasparilla or Birmingham Bowl does not affect. He can only affect his draft stock in a negative way. So no reason for him to play that game. And he worked really hard to get back and play a final season for this team. So I'm never going to say a bad word about Christian Mahogany. Kyle Hergel, I would expect the same thing. Again, another older prospect where playing that game does nothing but hurt his draft stock. Ezeraku is a very interesting name for a number of reasons. He is a junior. I'm not sure where he is in terms of his academics, in terms of like how close he is to graduating, which honestly could affect him possibly entering the portal. And I'm sure that BC's NIL collective is going to pony up as much as they can to try to keep him around. But I was talking about this with my family today, and I mean, Penn State is losing both their defensive ends to the draft this year in Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac. And I'm sure that Penn State and other programs like that would love to have a guy like Donovan Ezraku. So I'm worried about that. Again, I don't really know what's going on with Elijah Jones. Isaac Trapilo participated in senior day festivities. I think he is academically a senior, so maybe he's just doing that just in case. We don't really know what the future holds for him. So yeah, portal and opt out could be very interesting how that affects BC's roster going this bowl game. But I definitely agree with you that, and I think the few exceptions for when you shouldn't go to a bowl game is 2020 when BC was really banged up the end of the year and it was COVID and all that stuff. A lot of other stuff like that. And the other one would be if you're 5-7 and you get invited, but we don't want to do that. Yeah,
all right, let me read this out because there might be people that are listening and not reading this. Commodus Americanus says Ezraku is terrible. Why do you guys keep pretending this guy is great? Go ahead, Mitch.
He is a good player. This has been a rough season for him because he is getting game planned against by every team. They know that he's a good player and they're sending as many. Like if you watch this game, he's getting double teamed or getting chip help every single pass rushing snap. He's still a very competent run defender despite being relatively undersized for that position. His motors is very good considering the times he could have just kind of mailed it in throughout this season. So I give him respect for that. I know he doesn't show up in the stat sheet with sacks. I get that, but I promise you, if you watch him more closely, look at the pressure numbers. Okay. All right. We agree to disagree.
So yeah, I mean, even the Pro Football Focus grades usually are pretty strong for him. But let's talk about the future of this program. And that starts at the top. I had said earlier that if they're going to move on from Hafley, they should have moved on from him after the Pitt game. Do you think this would have changed? I mean, the fact that they were really, other than that first drive, not competitive in this game at all, changed anything that Blake James or the board of trustees will thought about Jeff Hafley?
I mean, I think, again, I agree with you, given that a change was not made last week. I don't see how this game would have changed anything. So yeah, I feel like they're going to stick with it, and I think I want to have us have a conversation on the podcast later about, kind of what expectations do we really have for this program and do they need to change, but that's for another day. But with that in mind, BC's expectations, the administration seem to be make a bowl game, and that's what he's done. And I know obviously the season did not end well in terms of the last few games. So, and this game was, again, I don't find this result particularly embarrassing, mainly because I expected it, at least as embarrassing as losing to Pitt last week or getting absolutely shellacked by Virginia Tech, who I think is a pretty mediocre ACC team. Miami is, I guess Miami is similarly mediocre, but they have a lot more talent. So I get why this game happened the way I get why this game developed the way it did. So I at this point, I would say I'm surprised if a change gets made, just because that's kind of what this administration's MO is, even though it is a different athletic director than the one that Hafley was hired by. It's actually the third athletic director since he's been here. So yeah, I don't foresee a change being made in the coming days.
I'm curious because I'm not sure I'm in the same boat as you on that one. And I get where you're coming from, Mitch, but like this administration, and I know it was Martin Jarman that made the move, but they weren't happy with Adazio at 6-6. And I could argue that Adazio played a tougher schedule than Hafley did. I mean, you look back at this schedule and the fact that BC was only able to go 6-6 against this garbage. I mean, like really, you played Louisville and you played Miami, like you played like 2 or 3 teams that you could chalk up as losses, and you still blew games against Pitt, NIU. You barely beat a bunch of bad teams. And so what does that say about the future of your program and where your program is at? I think that's the argument I would say is like, this program's going nowhere, and you're spinning like I would sit down with Blake James and go, do you like, you look at the schedule next year, you get Mizzou, you've got a tougher ACC schedule, you're playing Michigan State, who we don't know what's going to happen with them. Western Kentucky, who I could easily see BC flopping around and losing to that game. I mean, I feel like right now, the way I love Hafley, he's a nice guy. We've talked to him. Like I look at next year's schedule and I go, this team could go 3-9. And I feel like it's hard to argue against that unless Thomas Castanos somehow figures out a whole bunch about himself in the next year, and that could happen. But I'm worried that this is just this program spinning its wheels and not moving forward. And there's an opportunity that maybe if there's a coach out there, whether it's Bob Chesney, Dan Mullen, someone that you can grab now that's experienced, that can do this, that you can get now. Because like I sent you the text, Mitch. Syracuse sounds like they're very interested in Bob Chesney. And the worst thing that could happen to Boston College is they're getting their butt kicked every year by a guy that they could have grabbed that was in their backyard and they lose him. So I don't know. I'm just worried that if BC is really happy with this 6-6, that I feel like we're about to get walloped in the face in 2024.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. I just don't have the faith in the administration to see it that way. I would like to, but I just don't see that happening. I think the issue is every season has kind of ended the same way, and they've been I would say they've been pretty different seasons in terms of in 2020, you kind of have it's just a weird year for everybody. Let's just say that.
Yep.
2021, you lose Dracovic, and then obviously that really kills a lot of momentum for the program. And then he comes back, but he's still not healthy. And but the point is that year, and again, I know guys, there was a flu going around the team, and there were a lot of injuries, but that season, you win some games late. Oh, there's some optimism, and then you drop 2 straight, and you get pretty handled by Florida State and Wake Forest. Then the next year again, it's a bad team, a lot of injuries. You get that win against NC State, sure, that's great, but then you drop you get blown out by Notre Dame and then blow a big lead to Syracuse. This year, got a lot of optimism to talk about the path. Then you drop 3 straight to a mediocre Virginia Tech team where you get blown out at home. You lose to a bad Pitt team. And then you get blown out at home again to Miami. And every year, and I don't know exactly why this is happening. And this could be happening to every team. And, I'm sure it does to a certain extent. But every year, BC is really banged up at the end of the year. There's a lot of injuries. If you think about last year against Syracuse, a lot of guys were missing in that game. Not even on the offensive line, in like every position group. This year, secondary is really banged up again. Running back room is banged up. Wide receiver, well, not really wide receiver. Linebacker depth is almost gone. And then also, every year there's been these kind of weird, like off-field stuff. You've got Elijah Jones being suspended for disciplinary issues. You had some guys miss some time at the end of last year for weird stuff, and I'm not sure what we can talk about that. And then I'm not sure if we are at liberty to say this, but I think we're kind of frustrated with the program at this standpoint. But there was a lot of players that were going to be academically ineligible for the Military Bowl that year if they ended up playing that game, but they didn't because of COVID. So there's always these things happening where I'm not sure like how much of that you can really chalk up to the coaching staff, but now that it's been a consistent theme throughout the last few years, it's like, okay, what is going on? And I know injuries happen to everybody, but it seems to happen at the same rate, the same pace, the same pattern every year for BC. So why is that happening, and how are they going to avoid it in the future? And I don't know if they're going to, and I don't know if Hafley is the guy who can change whatever approach is happening, because that approach is leading to the same results every year.
I don't know. And we've gone, we've done a 180 in the way this program has been run. Like, you went from the gym coach, Steve Adazio, who is, old school football, to a guy that is much more humanistic, if you want to use like a psychology term, that's like much more down to earth. But you get like in both cases, you get these weird results. Adazio, after he leaves, you got guys like Andre Williams and these other guys freaking out about how much they hated the dude. And now you have all this weird crap with Hafley too, from a different perspective, where there's all this stuff we don't know what's going on, and you're just left in the dark. So what's the answer? There's no clear answer here other than it's just frustrating. And I just want to also comment. I saw some fan that was like ripping and he said insiders, so I'm assuming he's ripping at me, like, about not knowing what's going on with Elijah Jones. And I want to say to whoever, if you're listening, Dave Scalera, whatever the hell your name is, like, we can ask, but they're not like, A, there could be something we can't know, and B, like, we've asked and they're not telling us. I don't know what else we're supposed to do.
And if they do tell us and it's off the record, then we burn a bridge, and then we lose access to the program. So that's the biz. Sorry.
Right. Like, I can't like yell at Hafley and say, tell me, or the SID. It just doesn't work.
You can't go a few good men on him.
Right. It just doesn't work that way. So, like, for the folks, listen, I'm frustrated too, because I would love to know what the hell's going on. But if you listen to what was it? I think it was the Pitt game. Hafley got really angry at one of the reporters asking him about it. And because he's like, I think I told you already, but you didn't tell us anything. But like, you also have to understand that with like Elijah Jones, there could be things that are personal and private that we don't get to know. It's not like, oh, he was caught drinking in the mods or something like that. That could have happened, and we maybe would have known. But there's like things like you never know what's going on. And he, like, I'm gonna jump ahead and say, like, there's situations that Elijah Jones deserves some privacy, and I don't need to know what is going on. Like, he deserves to not have everyone prying into his life because he plays football.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very thankful that this is an old story by now, but I'm very glad we've had a lot of people respect Bryce Steele, who missed this whole year.
Right.
I'm glad people have been respectful of that. But so I think I've texted you this, and I think I might have written about this on the board, but I'll tell this story. And it's, again, we do not know what happened with Elijah Jones. I'm telling the story because I think it's related and it could be instructive as to why what happened. So I'm a Steelers fan. I mentioned that before. This year, the Steelers benched their starting right tackle, Chukwuma Okorafor, who has been with the Steelers for a very long time. He's been their starting right tackle for a long time. I think he's the longest tenured member of that offense. They drafted him, I think, in 2016. He's been there for a long time. And he's okay. He's fine. Not great or anything. They benched him a few weeks ago for their first round pick, Broderick Jones, who they drafted to play left tackle. They moved Broderick Jones over to right tackle. And they didn't really say why. And that was very weird because Mike Tomlin is usually very loyal to his guys. And then it eventually kind of started trickling out that it was some kind of disciplinary issue or something that Chukwuma Okorafor said. And eventually it came out that at the end of the Jaguars game, he said on the sideline to somebody, a coach or whatever, that essentially we should just kneel out the rest of this game because the offense isn't moving. And Tomlin did not like that. He said, if you're quitting on this team, you're benched. And he has played like a few snaps here and there as like an extra offensive lineman in jumbo sets. But he has been benched, and he is now there's no longer an or in the depth chart. He is the second string right tackle, and he is due a lot of money. So we do not know what Elijah Jones did, but I could see it being something kind of similar to that, where it is something that went with the coaches, where it's something in practice. And I think that there is a point where he could, be one to keep that private because he doesn't want to blow up Elijah Jones's spot. And, we haven't seen Elijah. I don't think Elijah Jones has been on the sidelines. He didn't participate in senior day. So, maybe he doesn't need to do that. But I'm just saying, like, you mentioned, there's some criminal stuff. And again, I think that's fair that we don't need to know that. I think, and Hafley has always been very upfront about, he hasn't upfront about what the injuries are, but he's always been very upfront saying, I need to protect my players' privacy. And I think that, it's frustrating for us as media. It's frustrating for the fans, but that's a respectable stance to take. And he's been very consistent about that throughout his tenure here.
I totally agree with that. And I didn't even mean just criminal. I mean, like, it could be personal.
For
like,
sure.
Who knows what it is? I don't want to speculate on it. I'm just saying, like, it's not the media's fault on this. We've asked, and there's nothing we can do. And it's not a wrong thing what the school is doing. Like, I saw someone from one of the other sites saying, like, it is. It's not. Like, you want to know this, but these are like 20-year-olds, and
they are adults, but again, this is different. And again, I would love to know, but I honestly do not think Hafley owes us that information.
Correct. All right, we're going to wrap things up before Mitch and I spend hours yelling about this stuff. I want to respond to one last comment from Malcolm Connors, who says, could Castanos leave in the portal with Moorhead? No. Well, I mean, I guess he could, but the only reason Thomas Castellanos is going to leave is if Jeff Hafley gets fired, because he's going to have to sit out another year. And honestly, I don't think he will. I don't think, I think he's happy here. So I don't think Castellanos is going anywhere unless you think differently.
No, I agree with you. If he did transfer, because the new rule is that you can transfer once pretty much without penalty. But if you want to transfer again, if you have not graduated yet, you have to sit out a year. And granted, he has not redshirted yet, so he could use his redshirt year to do that. But I just don't think that's happening. I mean, I know there's a hubbub about him kind of deleting all of his Instagram, but that's a thing that happens with
20-year-olds.
Wow, I can't even say this. The kids nowadays, where they just kind of clean out their Instagram page and there's just nothing there. And people are like, oh, he deleted all his BC stuff. It's like, no, he deleted everything.
Stuff in there too. If you look at
he deleted everything. The other question, and Josh mentioned this earlier, he asked about other players who are going to.
Oh, hold on. Can I answer that as your editor?
Yes.
Let me go back. Josh, the answer would be up on Eagle Insider, where we'll give you 75% off our annual VIP membership. Mitch and I will be discussing who could possibly be leaving, and I'll also be discussing what needs they have and what other positions they could be looking at. Mitch, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I was going to say, like, we'll talk about that in a later episode because we are running long on time, but we're going to, don't worry, there is a lot of time. Well, I mean, not really because it comes up quick, but we'll be discussing that in the future. Don't you worry.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Mitch, where can people find you?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolfe, WOLFE, on Twitter. We'll have our game rewatch of this. We'll see how that goes. And then season review time. And that'll be cool to kind of go back, look at all the stats, kind of rewatch some of the other games and try to pick out some fun trends. And then obviously previewing the bowl game. Again, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Birmingham or Gasparilla, probably against some team from the American Athletic Conference. So depending on how the New Year's Six shakes out, that could be a good team or it could be another 6-6 American Athletic Conference team. So, there's a chance for BC to get a 7th win. So, it'll be a fun month of content, obviously, with all the transfer portal stuff and recruiting and bowl games. So, again, AJ's mentioned it. Make sure you take advantage of this deal while you can.
All right, and this is AJ Black. Follow me on AJ Black 247 and make sure you hit like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, or like this and give us 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts. Josh, I know that was a slick plug. I went really hard for it, and I appreciate it. We'll be back again on Monday for another episode where I'll talk about more bad BC news as basketball got smoked over the weekend. We'll talk about hockey. Hopefully they have some good luck against Notre Dame, and we'll look at even more at this football game. We'll be back again soon. For Mitch Wolfe, this is AJ Black. Thank you all for listening to Locked On BC, your team every day.